On this episode of WTF, we will show you the tips and tricks for dehydrating your food. Hello and welcome to WTF, where we help you transform food in your kitchen. I'm Janie.
And I'm Ben.
And today we're talking all about dehydration, and we're going to share some tips on how do you get that perfectly preserved, dried food. Now remember to subscribe and also stick around for our weekly giveaway. Now, alright, let's start with the very basics, Ben. What is dehydration and how does it preserve food?
So, dehydration, it's one of the, if not the oldest form of food preservation in our history. So all it is taking a food that you would like to preserve, slicing it to about a 1/4 inch thickness, and putting it into a dehydrator or a safe, spot in the sun. And essentially it removes moisture and eliminates an environment for bacteria to grow.
Yeah. And of course, since people have all kinds of dehydrators, later on in the episode, we're going to talk about the difference between like a starter model versus a more advanced pro model. But I think what I found really interesting when we started diving into this is it's not enough to just toss the food into the dehydrator, which was exactly what I was doing at home. There were definitely some special techniques that you need in order to both safely preserve food and also to make sure that the food comes out looking and tasting really good. Right. Can you talk a little bit about what those extra steps are? Yeah,
so most of them are considered pre-treatments or post-treatments. So heck, just the sheer variety of what you can dehydrate, starting with the basics, just with fruits and vegetables. Fruits can undergo several different types of pre-treatments.
Okay, yeah, what are those?
So heck, we have a whole gamut of what we've dehydrated right in front of us. So ultimately, they can go through an ascorbic acid bath for 5 minutes. They can go through a citric acid bath. They can also go through a honey bath or a sugar bath. And all of these essentially help protect color and flavor.
All right. And so we wanted to kind of run through all of them to see which one we thought was the best. Can you just kind of tell us a little bit what's on each plate, and we'll just kind of walk through them and taste them, because I actually have not tried all of these. So cool. I'm excited to see which one is the tastiest one.
Yeah, so this first plate right here is the untreated fruits.
Okay.
So we have apples and bananas, two pretty easy to tell if they've gone brown types of fruits. So apples, you can see right away they've gone brown. The bananas, they're pale. They look a little sad, but they kind of kept their color.
And that's how usually it looks when I do it at home, but when I buy it in the grocery store, they're like bright, and I was like, oh, how do they do that? But we'll tell you how. So this is actually, it's tasty, it's dried, but you're right, it's looking a little wilty. Yeah. What do we have here?
Right here is the ascorbic acid dip, and essentially, ascorbic acid is vitamin C. So vitamin C does a really good job of protecting color. And all we did was in a quart of water, we mixed about 1.5 grams of ascorbic acid, and then let it bathe for about 5 minutes.
I will say, I feel like this one's actually browner than the untreated one.
It is.
And I don't like the texture as much.
I will say that the apples are very, I feel like they are very white, so they haven't really discolored. The bananas have, and I have a feeling that because bananas are so fragile and they can kind of bruise when they're bumped up against each other, that while they were bathing, the bruising process kind of started and led to this discoloration.
Yeah, and also anything you add acid to, it's going to gain a little bit of that acidity. And I like that with obviously the green bananas, the green apples, but not as much with the bananas. I don't know if I would do the ascorbic acid for bananas. I do it for the apple. Okay, what do we have next?
Next is a citric acid bath. We use the same amount of citric in a quart of water and bathe for 5 minutes.
Okay. And this one is currently both the brownest and then also I think the least appealing texture. It's a little mushy. It's a little leathery to me, so I don't know if I would do this one.
I'm going to try it too. And I don't know if you can hear it clinking on the plates. These were dehydrated for about 24 hours.
Okay.
So we just put them in there, sliced them, set it and forget it. Came back the next day.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this one. What do we have here?
Oh, I got a nice crunch on that one.
Maybe I just got a dud.
It's okay. Right here is a honey bath.
Okay.
So we basically used 1 part honey, 4 parts water, and let them bathe for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely got that honey sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
This
Oh,
one,
yeah,
I
they
think,
do. It's good.
yeah, this one's tasty. Also, to me, a little bit softer than the untreated.
Mm.
But this one is good. Like, I would eat this one.
It's funny. You're going for the bananas. I'm going for the apples.
I'm a banana person. Okay, what do we got next?
Next is just straight sugar blanch. So
Okay.
what we did was we created a sugar syrup with 1 part sugar, 2 parts water, and then did a real quick blanch for about 30 seconds. And it looks really nice. Comparative to the untreated to the sugar blanch, I think the sugar is the best.
I would agree. I think you can kind of see when we look at this is like the whitest of the apples. Like all the rest of them have like some kind of discoloration to them. This one is super, it looks super fresh. Same thing for the bananas, right? Like they look pretty unblemished to me.
Yeah.
And they're also tasty because now they're coated in sugar. So I would say the sugar is also my personal favorite. But obviously here, we have a lot of people watching who are keto. So if you're like, I don't want to do the keto, I would say my next favorite would be the ascorbic acid treatment.
Yeah, I mean, I would say your eyes aren't lying to you. Yeah, sugar treatment definitely looks the best. I would say it tastes the best because it's sweet.
It's got sugar in it.
But the honey is a close contender because of also its sugar content.
Yeah.
I got a sweet tooth.
I know. So, whatever your preference is, but here are some different options for how you can treat your fruits in order to make sure that they are preserved in the best way possible. And I think while we're on the topic, before we move on to, the jerky and the fruit leather, I want to talk a little bit about if you're in a grocery store and you're picking your produce for dehydration, what types of conditions are you really looking for?
So for fruit, you're looking for a really dense berry or fruit, honestly. You want something that's small and heavy for its size. So all of these were peak ripeness. You don't want to use bruised fruit for dehydration because those blemishes aren't going to go away. They're just going to become more apparent. And other than that, for vegetables, you want to dehydrate as close to harvest as possible. So if you have something growing in your backyard and you want to preserve it, cut it and dehydrate it that day, basically as close to harvest as possible.
Yeah. So those are some really fun tricks. We are going to leave all the information we're presenting today in a little chart. It's going to be in the links in the description below, so you can access it to make sure you find what you're looking for. You're like, I really want to try this one. It'll be down in the links. Now let's move on to jerky.
Cool.
So what kind of treatments do work for jerky or in meat or in fish in general?
So jerky can be any type of protein. That's really what it comes down to. The important part is that you are killing off any pathogen that might be on that meat, either before you put it in the dehydrator or after you put it in the dehydrator. So fundamentally, if you just marinate meat, put it in the dehydrator and eat it, it might be good for a short period, but over time it will spoil.
Yeah.
But that's ultimately because it wasn't pre-treated or post-treated.
Yeah, and what kind of pre and post treatments work best for jerky? Because obviously we're not dipping them in honey.
Right. So
Could.
hey, right. So with jerky, pre-treatments usually involve simmering your marinade. So if you're marinating in soy sauce and Worcestershire, you basically take all of those components, put it into a sauce pot, and let them come to a simmer. And then you individually take your beef slices, slice to a 1/4 inch. This is just beef as an example. You can literally use any protein. You basically do 2 minutes a slice.
Okay.
And that will kill off any pathogen that's on there anyway. It essentially cooks the strip before it goes into the dehydrator.
Okay.
And then you're free to dehydrate. That's the pre-cook method. There are other methods that are kind of like in the middle, where you can use an acid like vinegar to bathe them for 10 minutes, and then those are free to dehydrate. You don't need to cook at all.
And that's really interesting because when we were talking about it, I was like, are we pickling meat?
Essentially, yeah.
And then we tried it.
Yeah, I mean, this pickle right here is an acid treatment, so it hasn't been pre-cooked or post-cooked. It's good to go right out of the dehydrator.
And I have to say, like, we tried this. You already have one?
Yeah,
All right,
hey,
I'm going to grab this one.
Primed and ready.
So, and we had this one, and I was like, I have to see what it tastes like to eat a pickled
I will say
beef.
this is the second batch we tried, because the first batch had a lot of acid in it. And this is a little better, actually a lot better than the first batch.
It's a really interesting flavor because it's got like all the marinade, and then it's got this acidity, which typically you don't associate with meat unless it's like gone bad. But
it hasn't.
yeah, but it's Like, it's really interesting and it's really delicious. So if you're like, I want to try pickling the meat before I dehydrate, I would recommend giving it a go. You'll be surprised.
Yeah, and the only thing to keep in mind is make sure your vinegar is 5% acidity. And other than that,
Making my mouth water.
right? And this sucker right here is a post-cook. So after you dehydrate, you can marinate your meat, put it in the dehydrator, and then afterwards, just put it in the oven at about 260 for 10 minutes, and it's just good to go.
Okay, 160 or 260?
Well, I mean 260 for the oven set, but 160 internal temp. So that's really what ovens versus the meat itself.
And I know one of the things we wanted to talk a little bit about was moisture content, right? Like, why is it that when you're dehydrating fruit, it essentially comes out super dry, but then like the meat, you still want that like softness. You don't want it dry until it's essentially just like a stick of wood.
So essentially, you don't want 0% moisture in your beef jerky. Your fruit and vegetables over here essentially almost get there. Their sugar and acid content really kind of help that. But here we have protein that's essentially a sponge with water, and we don't want to just eat that really dense, hard fiber. We want something that's a little palatable, something that's chewable. So in general, this can be tested with a water activity meter.
Okay.
It's just a fancy piece of technology you can buy on Amazon at this point. They're available. They're just maybe a little expensive. And you want to shoot for so the way water activity works is it's expressed as a decimal between 0 and 1. 1 being water, 0 being no water. So you want to get your dehydrated beef jerky to around 0.8 for your dehydration, just to have it shelf stable and good to eat.
Yeah, and I would think that was like higher than you think it is, but it is what that is.
Yeah.
So obviously for most of us, we don't have equipment to measure water content at home. How can you really tell just by the look and feel that the jerky is good?
Yeah, so it's really just having knowing what you like in jerky. So, if you like Jack's Links or anything like that, you could shoot for their texture. And honestly, if you grab a jerky out of the store and bend it, it's not going to snap. Right? It has some give to it. If it's over dried, it's going to snap. If it's under dried, it's literally going to be like a wet noodle.
Yeah.
But I mean, here you can see that the cordage is actually breaking a little bit. You can see the connective tissue, and it sounds good when you break it.
That did sound good. I don't know if the mic caught it, but it did.
So,
yeah.
Heck, I'm going to eat it right now.
Okay. And then the other fun thing we did, and this was just for fun, is that we took our quick pickles that we just did a couple of episodes ago, and we're like, well, if we're pickling meat, what about the pickle itself? So we dehydrated our quick pickles from a few weeks ago and tasted them, and these are delicious. I actually really like these because these are like a fun little snack. I really enjoy them.
They take on a nice texture too. Like, they're not dry to the bone. They're almost like a little gummy.
Yeah, these are really tasty. So if you are like, what else can I do with my pickles? You can dehydrate them.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
So, fruit leather.
Okay, before we move on to fruit leather, I wanted to talk real fast about storage. So, we're making this jerky, and how do we store them to make sure that we are getting the most flavor and impact and shelf life, etc., out of them?
Yeah. So after you're finished your batch dehydrating, it's good to gather it all together and put it in a tight container. Oftentimes you'll see it like the corner store or the gas station, mason jars or glass jars with lids full of beef jerky, and that essentially allows the jerky to rehydrate and kind of reach an equilibrium with the rest of the batch. Generally, this is referred to as conditioning. And I strongly encourage you to do it with your jerky, with your dried vegetables and fruits, literally everything that you dehydrate.
Yeah, and that part was really confusing to me because I was like, wait, we just took the water out of it and we're saying we want to remove the water, but now we're storing it in a way where we're redistributing the water. Why is that?
Well, you want consistency. Okay. That's really what it comes down to. So you might have a spot that was sitting on the bottom that's a little less dry than the spot that was sitting at the top, and essentially you want to meet in the middle.
Okay.
So it just ends up helping out the whole batch rather than having a piece that's perfect and a piece that's maybe too much.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really great tip. All right, before we move on to fruit leather, I wanted to talk first about this week's giveaway. And this week's giveaway will actually be some of the ingredients that you might need in order to do these types of dehydration at home, including a couple of the acids, the Ultra-Stik, which we're going to talk about in just a few seconds here, which is used to make the fruit leather. So in order to enter to win, enter below something that you would like to dehydrate. All right, fruit leather. We did an episode about fruit leather a while ago, and we have a video all about it. You're going to see it on the shorts or reels, whatever it's called this week, later on. But we want to talk a little bit about it because it's another, I would say, a little bit more unique use for the dehydrator, but it's also really fun. This is an activity you can do with the kids. It uses up like excess fruit or things that are about to go bad. You're like, what do I do with it? I'm tired of having smoothies. What else can I do? So fruit leather is really fun. Can you talk about what fruit leather is and how do we do it in the dehydrator?
Easy. So fruit leather is like, 2 ingredients if you want to keep it simple. So all it is your select fruit of choice and our Ultra-Stik product. It's really straightforward. So you can literally take any blend, any specific piece of fruit that you'd like. Here we have a whole medley. You could take a berry out and do that, or you could take it all and put it all in together and have your own blend. It's such a fun, kind of sweet, to me, I have a sweet tooth anyway, so it's my preferred dehydrating activity over beef jerky, over fruits and vegetables. But I grew up eating fruit by the foot, so that's just me. But ultimately, you have 240 grams of any fruit, 100 grams of Ultra-Stik, spread to an even 1/4 inch consistency on a dehydration tray. And you dehydrate it I dehydrated these at about 140 and did that for about 4 hours. And I think they came out perfect.
Yeah, so this is fun. You can see they're not hard. It's exactly the process used to make fruit by the foot, except now you can use it and do your own flavors, make it as healthy, organic, whatever, fresh as you would like it. So that's really fun as well. So you can kind of see it's got a lot of give and it's fun and delicious. Do you add sugar to this?
No sugar added. Yeah, I mean the Ultra-Stik is a little bit of a sweetener. It's corn syrup solid, so it does have some sweetness to it, but it's about 70% as sweet as sugar.
So this is actually a really nice sweetness right here because it doesn't taste quite like candy, but I like how fresh this tastes. It tastes like fresh fruit and without any added flavors or anything.
It's strawberry kiwi. It's really good.
Oh, it is super good. Now, before we wrap up, we wanted to talk a little bit about equipment of dehydration. Now, we have 2 different types of dehydrators here. You don't technically need one. You could do it in the oven with the pilot light on if you feel like leaving your oven on for,
a long time.
4 to 12 hours. But if not, we have both here a intro model. So this is actually my home dehydrator because I have a small kitchen, so I don't have the space for this Excalibur right here. So I got a little home one, and it's a starter model. And then over here we have the Excalibur, which is kind of more of a high-end professional. This thing's made of metal, so this is definitely a more quality product. And we want to talk a little bit about what are the differences between a starter model and a professional model. What did you find when you started looking into them, Ben?
So there are some fine differences, but the key things to keep in mind is that they're both made out of food-safe materials, and they're both going to produce a full food-safe quality product. The fine differences, usually with the higher-end models, you have better insulation, so less heat loss to the system. With this model in particular, you also have a timer, so it's set it and forget it.
Okay.
So those are 2 big pros right there. This more home model is, it's made out of BPA-free materials. It's plastic. It does have a lot of gaps that can allow heat to escape. The thing that I noticed with your model is that it actually rises to a higher temperature than the model over here.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, so you can get essentially a higher temp in this. And I mean, I did some testing with thermometers, and it does reach about 165 in this whole unit.
Okay.
Which can essentially cook your jerky while it's dehydrating.
Cool.
So it's an interesting feature, and something that the more professional model doesn't have. So there are pros and cons to everything.
And this one's old, so I don't know whether the newer ones do go up to, but this one's about 10 years old by this point. Now, 5 years old, whatever. So what I found actually when I was making stuff at home is I missed having that timer. Like there were definitely times when I was like 8 hours, I gotta try to plan my day, around the dehydration, which was inconvenient. And then also I think for me the main thing was capacity. This could dehydrate way more. This one, there were some times when I was doing I think I was trying to do a jerky and I had to do 2 batches because I couldn't fit it all in one. And then like this is ease of use. You know, for the price point, you know, if you have the space for it, this is definitely...
Yeah, and of course you can fit more product in there too. So if you want to make a lot more jerky, definitely go with the bigger model.
Yeah. So, you know, those are your different options. They will both get your food dry and delicious. And remember to use the treatments, which I actually think was an element that I was missing, and I'm going to start incorporating that now. So this was a lot of information about dehydration. Hopefully you're excited to try them. Maybe you're already doing them and we've given you a few tricks to help improve your dehydrated goods. If you leave in comments below what exactly you like to do, maybe we'll give them a shot here in the kitchen. So until next week, from here in a Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen, I'm Janie.
And I'm Ben.